Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Steve with LRM Leasing, and we are going to talk about the air dryer filter cartridge. And in my previous video, we were talking about there are two different types. We had the spin-on one, and then the other one, which I have right here, which is inside of a housing. We're going to talk about what tools you need. I'm going to hopefully show you little tricks that will make it move along a little bit quicker. Don't get frustrated. Let's take it step by step. And again, the whole point of doing this is to save you guys a lot of money. So let's try to hop into this right away. So what I want to talk about is let's get things ready for the job. One, let's get our tools, right? If you have it, a power tool, I have a 3/8 impact gun right here. If you don't have it, it's not a crime, but you can get a ratchet, a 3/8 ratchet. And then the next thing you're gonna need is a socket. You're gonna need a 9/16, and then you're also gonna need a 7/16 socket. Also with that, you're gonna need a 9/16 wrench, all right? You're also gonna need a pair of vice grips, and I'm gonna tell you guys why about the vice grips as we go through this video today. Also, our favorite one, the crescent wrench, just because it's multiple wrenches in one. You're also gonna need some brake clean, our favorite cleaner upper. And last but least, you're also gonna need a rag. The final thing you need is patience. Take your time, you might bust a knuckle, breathe, take a step back, but we're gonna get this project done, and again, we're gonna save you some money. So today I'm working on this Freightliner Cascadia, and this air dryer happens to be mounted on the driver's side. Now, if you see it somewhere else, sometimes it's under the truck, but it's this particular style that would be pretty much about the same. I'm gonna show you guys how to take it off. So the first step, what we're gonna need to do is one, put the truck in park. Two, put wheel chocks onto the tire so it doesn't move just in case. And then the third thing is we're gonna deplete all the air out of the truck. We wanna make sure that the air dryer is not charged full with air, because remember, you need air for the truck to release the brakes, and it has an air system. Get all the air out so you're not fighting what you're trying to take off today. So once you get it all out, all the air out, the next thing you wanna do is disconnect all the air lines to it. Sometimes it could be just up to 3 air lines. It's usually a line going in and a line going out for the air dryer, and then the last one is a small little air line that goes to the governor. And what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna show you right here behind me what bolts we're gonna remove and what clamp to loosen and what lines to take off. So let's get right into it, guys. All right, so the first thing you guys wanna do is remove the air line. So the one that I have on top right here, it's this gray silver line, which goes to your governor. We're gonna remove it. So this is a push-in tab. You're gonna push down on the line and hold the collar sleeve and then pull up, and the line should come right out. Now, if it doesn't, what you need to do is grab the gray line, hold the sleeve, and try to spin it. Sometimes it gets locked up. You guys gotta remember, this stuff is outside. It's in the elements, rain, water, salt, snow. So stuff might be rusty, some might be a little hard. This is where patience is gonna come into play. So what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna remove this one gray line. I'm gonna push down the tab, push in the air line, and lift up. So this collar right here, I don't know if you can see it, this collar, let me see if I can move it. Well, here's the line, you push down and you hold down and the line comes up. If you can see this collar, I can move it. See how it moves? That collar, you push, hold this down with your finger, and then push the line down and then pull up by holding that collar, and the line should come up. Now, if it doesn't, that's where I tell you grab your line and you hold the collar, this collar here, hold it, and then hold that in place and spin the gray line and then pull up. And it should come right out. These are pretty easy. They're just push-ins. Once you got the line out, then what we're gonna do is go underneath and remove the 2 other air lines and unplug the sensor. This is where we have the vice grips. This air line here, which is usually a rubber hose or a metal hose. So this part is supposed to spin and this should stay put. But like I said before, it's out in the elements, and this is where you're probably gonna need the vice grips. What I would do is I would put the vice grips right up here, right above where you need to turn, tighten it to hold it in place. And then you get your trusty crescent wrench and you're gonna put it right on here. Hold the vice grips in place so it can turn. So if you hold it in place and turn it, that part will move and the line will stay in place. And now the whole point of that is so you don't kink up the airline or create any damage. Now, sometimes you may have to replace it But this is where you get a chance where you can most likely save the airline and you don't have to do additional parts. Once it comes off, there you go, it's removed. So that's one airline, and then you can take the vice grips out of your way. All right, now just next to it, you'll see a sensor. Easy, you just pull down the tab and you pull out. That's it, so the sensor's unplugged. And then the last one that you'll see is this other airline just below it, and it's another push-in tab. So this one's plastic. All you gotta do is push in the sleeve and pull on the line, and it should come out just like that. Now that you have the air dryer completely disconnected, what we're gonna do now is remove some bolts and loosen up a clamp so we can get the air dryer completely off the truck. All right guys, so now that we have all the air lines disconnected from the air dryer and we have the sensor unplugged, next thing we need to do is remove the unit off the truck so we can disassemble it on the ground and clean everything. So I already removed one bolt. You can see it's pretty long. Now these bolts, it's not something that you purchase or anything, it's actually already part of the unit. So all you're gonna do is just remove what's already there. So I already got one out. And then also the tool that you're gonna need to remove this bolt, it's gonna be a 9/16. Now the best thing for you to do is you'll see that when you look at the unit, that the nuts are pointed upward on the top side. That's what you wanna use the wrench for. And then underneath, because you have more room and accessibility, you can use your power gun. And instead of trying to use a wobble or extension, that's just a waste of time. Use a wrench from the top and the gun from the bottom. And you guys will move through this a lot quicker. So I got one bolt, and then I gotta loosen up a clamp, and this bad boy's coming off the truck. Right over here, you'll see, and like I'm gonna tell you, go underneath, lefty loosey, righty tighty. We're gonna get right underneath here. Got the other bolt out. And then we're gonna need the other socket, which is gonna be the 7/16, and that's gonna be for the clamp. So we have a 7/16. Now you don't have to go crazy with the gun, but you could use your gun. Just be careful that you don't break the clamp. And what you do is you put it on, and what we're gonna do is loosen it up. Now, this part, be careful. If anything, put your hand against it so it doesn't just fall and flop to the ground or hit you in the foot. So I place one hand here, just like that. I'm gonna put the gun off to the side. And now we have the unit out of the truck. So what I'm gonna do now is gonna go on the ground, break it down. I'm gonna point out what we need to take off. So stay tuned, let's start into this, all right guys? All right guys, as you can see, I have it torn apart. Now, the first two bolts that I showed you, these are all the way around the perimeter of the filter, and you're gonna remove them all. Just keep in mind, put them off to the side so you don't lose them. Put them in a cup, just put them somewhere you don't kick them by accident. Especially if you have kids or an animal that might be helping you, just make sure you don't lose them. Now, here's the other thing is, I gotta mention, you're also gonna need two more tools. Well, one more, which is gonna be a filter pair of pliers. Sometimes what will happen is a technician may put this on with a pair of these. That's a no-no. You just gotta put it on hand tight. You know, get it nice and snug and then put it back together. Sometimes some shops will put these on a little too tight. You may need help. So keep that in mind when you're doing this. Maybe have a friend and you guys are kicking back and relaxing and say, hey, let's do a truck repair party. Do it with a friend, most likely. And then the other thing is if you can find any way for like a paint marker. So what I do is for that is I'm gonna mark on the housing where my brackets were. That's it, that's the only reason. So I know exactly where I mounted it on the truck and also where the bracket for the air governor was. That's it. So those extra two things I would definitely highly recommend, and have a friend nearby in case you guys need help to crank this off. So once you get the filter out and exposed, it just spins on. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna just crank. Once it comes off, you should be able to spin it by hand. Once we get it all out, the next crucial thing that we need to do is clean the housing. And that's where the brake clean will come in handy. And then you'll also notice as you unspin it that there's gonna be O-rings. So we're gonna have an O-ring right here on the outside, and we're also gonna have an O-ring on the inside. And as you can tell, it's a little dirty. I would hit this up with brake clean, go in there with a rag, and then we'll put the O-ring on the inside and the outside to make sure it's nice and clean. And I'll probably put a little lubricant, which should be in the new repair kit. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna display all that out for you guys. But right now, this is where we're at. We need to remove, clean, and then set out our new parts and then start reinstalling. All right, brake clean coming in, guys, right there. Sometimes I call for things and it just falls right out of the sky for me. What we wanna do is remove the O-ring. You have one here. If you have nails, you can get it out. If not, a little flathead or a knife, pick. And then what you wanna do is just clean this all up. And that's where that rag comes in handy. You wanna clean all inside. And if you have an air gun, that helps too, especially if you wanna blow everything out. Get all that debris. But considering sometimes you may not have an air gun, I'm gonna do it by hand, just like if you guys would at home. And all I wanna do, like I said, just wanna get all that debris out, and especially where the O-rings are gonna be mounted. This is where the O-rings are gonna mount up, right here and on the outside. This could still be nasty. That part I don't mind. It's where the O-ring on the outside, right here on this lip, is where it's gonna go. And that's what we wanna put back on. Make sure we have a nice clean mounting surface. Now, if you see any cracks, along here or inside it, then it's no point to even go any further. You're gonna have to replace the unit as a whole. But as long as it's not cracked or you don't see any full physical damage, then you can keep moving forward by putting the filter in. So here's my filter kit that I have. Comes brand new. Comes with the O-rings. And this kit did not come with a little gelatin, which I would want. Now what you could do is you could put a little light coat of oil, like little engine oil, just a light coat, not drench it, so we can make it sure that it has a nice smooth surface, because the whole point of that is when you pinch it or whatnot, you want it to roll right into it so we don't cut the O-ring by accident, and you want a nice seal. It's just like anything with an O-ring. You don't want to put it on dry, put a little bit of lubricant on it. And it doesn't matter how you start, inside, outside, as long as you get the O-ring mounted. Now, especially when you put a lubricant on it, it'll hold it in place. And be patient, just get the O-ring nice and settled. And then you would put the other one back in the middle as well, just like that. Now what I am gonna do is I am gonna go and get something to lubricate the O-ring, like I just told you guys. I'm gonna put a little bit of oil on here. This is a little bit of white lithium grease that I have here. You can use petroleum jelly. Petroleum jelly is Vaseline. So if you have Vaseline, which I'm pretty sure for most part everybody has at home, put a little bit on the O-rings. And all you're doing is putting a light coat. We're not going crazy. All we want is a light coat of the grease. So once you got a nice light coat, it should look shiny and a little slick. And then we're gonna grab our new filter. Just like how it came off, you're gonna put it back in. Now take your time, do not rush it. If it feels like you gotta force and crank it, you're probably cross-threading it. Back out and make sure you have the threads. As you guys can see, it's going on nice and smooth. Like I said, if you have a buddy watching you, sweating your butt off, you can ask him to help you, to hold. But other than that, get as tight as you can. Hand tight, don't use a tool. That's one thing you don't need to put these on. So now once you got it secured, here's the housing. You don't have to go crazy. Little brake cleaning inside. Just like that. Because it's just air. There's no oil in here. Now, if you have oil in here, there's a problem. Usually, when you get oil, that means the air compressor's failing. Anytime you see oil anywhere in here or in here, that means you need to look at a further problem. And majority of the time, it's gonna be your air compressor, all right? So once you have that all cleared up, it doesn't matter what orientation you put this on. All you gotta do is just put it on like so, and then get some bolts started. Now, if you made marks on it like I did, put the ones that you're gonna start with without those marks, so we can at least tighten it down. Now, when taking these nuts off, because these are lock nuts, be careful when you take them off. They heat up, they will burn your finger. Also, sometimes you may want to replace the nuts or replace the bolts. Always look at the threads, make sure they're not cross-threaded or damaged. But if they're not, you can reuse these, which is good. Save money. That's the key. All about saving money. All right, guys, now that you get the bolts back in, and always remember, the way you took it off should be the way you put it back on. So the bolts go from the bottom, come up, and then the nuts come up here. And if you remember, we have to keep 2 blank spots open because that's where it was mounted onto the truck. Now what you're gonna do is you're gonna get your gun, right? And your wrench. Remember, 9/16 wrench, 9/16 socket. And we're gonna do it from the bottom. Crisscross it so you can have an easy transition going from the top to the bottom so we don't have the O-ring pinch out by accident. So don't rush this part, take your time. Tighten a little, then go on the other side, tighten. Just do a crisscross pattern, if anything, okay? What you do on one side, do on the other. All right, guys. So now she's all back together, we're about to put it back on the truck. And remember, we have 2 spots, that's where it mounts onto the truck. And then we're gonna put the big clamp back around it again. So the first thing I would try to do is get your clamp ready first. Let that be your guide, and then put the bolts in. So if you remember, the way you start and the way you finish, when you put it back on, it's the way you finish to put back together as your starting point. So if the clamp was the last thing you put on, when putting it back on, clamp's gonna be the first thing you put on. All right, guys? So let's hop right into the truck. I'm gonna show you how we're gonna set this up. I'm gonna get the clamp ready. Let's go. Here's the clamp. We're gonna set this right here. Let the weight hold it down. Get your clamp in place. So as you guys can see, I got the clamp in place. And now she's holding up all on her own. It's a little bit of a balancing act, and this is where I tell you guys every time, or not every time, but when I'm telling you guys from the beginning, be patient, take your time. If it's getting hot and you're frustrated, walk away, get a beer, then come back. Or water, whatever your preference of liquid. But point being is, don't get frustrated. Take your time. You guys are learning how to do this, all right? It's not gonna get it overnight. So once you get the clamp in, we got the bolts. We're gonna go, again, from the bottom to the top. Now, what you're gonna do is you may have to wiggle it and move it around. And that's not today. But there you go. I got 1 bolt in. Get the nut. Just get it ready. Now, don't try to spin the nut from the top. Go from the bottom where it's easy. All you gotta do is just hold the nut in place. And if your hand is a little too big, grab your 9/16 wrench, put the nut, and then slide it, right? And pull that bolt down just a little. So if the bolt's down, then what you can do is just place your finger on top of the nut, hold it in place, and then spin from the bottom until it catches. Once it catches, then you're golden. Also, a good thing to notice is that I didn't tighten the clamp. Now that I got it started, we go back to our wrench and our gun. And again, you're gonna go from the bottom. Make sure you're going in the right direction. Righty-tighties. Well, all you need to do is just get it snug. That's it. You don't need any more than that. And you'll feel it if you had a ratchet. With a gun, you can accidentally break the bolt here. So just be very gentle when you're using the gun. I highly recommend that you use a ratchet. So now that she is mounted to the truck, the next thing we need to do is reconnect the airline. So let's hop into that. And then once we get everything reconnected, we need to double check our work. By doing that is we're gonna fire up the truck, get it all the way up to 120, grab soap and water in a spray bottle, and literally hose down this whole section. If you see any bubbles, there's a good chance you're gonna have to restart over, especially around the area. But if not, and you see it somewhere else, you may need to replace an airline, but you don't want to see any bubbles. If you have no bubbles, you have completely successfully switched out the air cartridge in this air dryer, and you're good to go. And that's the way you guys can do by saving some money, by spending a little bit of time and doing it with a friend too. All right, guys, so now we have the truck fired up. I got the air pressure up to 120. I turned off the truck because there's 2 things I want to do. One, I want to see if I hear any air leaks. And the second, I got my bottle here with soap and water, which you have in your house, and we're going to spray down the area. Drench the whole thing. Don't be shy. Dump it on here. And if we see any bubbles, then we know that we still have a problem from when we did the repair, or we find something new. But at the end of the day, we just want to make sure there's no bubbles so we have a nice, good, clean, fixed air system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drench it down like I'm watering some plants. And all we're looking for is any air bubbles. So right now I don't see any air bubbles forming. That's good. I got lucky. Yes, no air leaks. So That's how we replace the air filter cartridge, air dryer cartridge in this particular unit. So this one, as you guys see, it was more in depth and in detail. Just make sure you guys pay attention, be patient, and then have a little fun with it. Do it with a friend, but this is the best way for I can show you guys. This is to save money. The air filter cartridge, right now, if you go in the market, it's anywhere between 30 to 100 bucks. It all depends what brand you buy or how many microns that you want in there, right? Then the next thing is usually a shop will charge easily anywhere between 2.5, 3 hours, right? Well, you guys can do this on the weekend. Give up an hour of your time, save that money. Because if you think about it, sit here at your house, chill with a friend, do a filter, and save some money. And guess what? Instead of spending $300, $400 in labor, buy a 6-pack and have fun. So if you guys like what you saw today, please hit the like button. If you have any comments or concerns of what you saw today, leave me a comment at the bottom. And guys, don't forget to subscribe. I want to send more content your way so you guys can save money. See you guys around.